Hey everybody, at the start of this video you're going to hear me say that we're going to work on the wall section, and we will get started on it, but you're going to notice that I immediately jump over when I get going good on the wall section. I'm going to jump over and start working on the foundation because we had some changes that we've got to make. So this is like a change order, and it's stuff. The reason why it's not a true change order though is because we had to go in and make some alterations of things that were not in there. So bear with it in the video. We'll end up having two videos this time instead of just one for this wall section because we've got some things that we need to do. But I did want you to know that before we get going, okay? Y'all have a great day and enjoy the video. Hi everyone. Today what we're going to do is the wall section for our house. If you notice, I've taken the deck and the porch off and all the hatch patterns for our brick and stuff. Our windows and doors were not there. I'm just want to work off of this simple drawing here to get us going good. The first thing we want to do is we do want to establish our floor line, which of course is here. Make sure you're in the wall. So I'm going to go into the line. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make sure I grab the end point of this line, drag it out. Okay, I'm going to come down here. I'm also going to get the floor line for my basement and drag it out. I'm just establishing me some start points is all I'm doing. Now I'm going to draw me a line for my actual wall to start on. I'm going to click here and just drag up. We'll make it a little bit long. Now notice right there I got my line crooked. So what I want to do is I want to hit undo, go back in. Anytime that happens, make sure you got it straight. That's just where your mouse came off the line a little bit. So there we go. That's just a basic starting point. Real simple, real straightforward. We will need this detail here. So let's copy this over. I'm going to grab it here and just drag it straight across and drop it into place. Now I can do some shortening or lengthening here as I need to, because I'm going to create this and make it a little more detailed, of course. I can't have just what I've got in there. Okay, so let's go down. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up to get this drawn out. So when we do this, what we want to do, of course, is we want to lay out our floor, get it in the right place. We're going to have our footing. We're going to lay block walls. So all that will need to be done. Our footing and our block walls, what I usually do is I usually come down about 1 block or so to show my footing. So I'm going to offset down 8 inches. And this is just to get the look that I want. So if I start here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my footing. Now if you remember from our notes, let's go out and see our notes here. Our footing is a 12 by 24 continuous footing, and it's going to be 8 inches deep, okay? So when we come back in, I'm going to offset 8 inches. Okay, and if you notice, I've got a drawing out here that shows a wall section. Now this doesn't have a basement on it though, but that's sort of what we're going to be looking like when we get done, okay? So I'm going to come back into my drawing now. I'm going to put my footing like I said here, and I'm going to center my footing up on this wall. So I need to have a 12-inch block. Everything we're going to draw is going to be nominal. So I'm going to offset 12 inches. I'll go ahead and drag these lines down for my block work. And now, since we're 12 inches wide and we've got a 24-inch wide footing, our footing will be 6 inches over from here. So if I drag over and say 6 inches and down, same thing on this side, drag over 6 inches and down. Okay, so there's the start of my footing. All right. So I can take now and I can do some trim work. I'm going to use these as my cut lines. So now we've got our footing in place, 8 inches thick, 24 inches wide. We do need to show our rebar in this footing. Now remember, a footing only has to be 4 inches wider on each side than the actual block. We've gone 6 inches wider. If your contractor has a 24-inch bucket, they're probably going to cut a 24-inch for their excavator. They're probably going to cut a 24-inch footing. If they've got a 20-inch bucket, then they'll cut a 20-inch footing. But this is just to let you know I'm going to draw this one in standard, okay? So I'm going to come in. I'm going to say circle. I'm going to use center diameter. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hover and drag down here just to get it placed at an approximate location for now. I'm going to make these big enough so I can see them. So I'm going to say 1 inch, and I'm just going to mirror that around. So there, and notice I've got it up off the bottom. I didn't do an exact measurement, but I'm roughly, let's see how far I am off there. I'm a little over 2 inches off. That's just, again, so it's very visible and very seeable. We want people to know that that rebar is in there, okay, and we're going to have to label that later. Okay, so up 1 block, and I'm going to use this as the start of my floor line also. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got a line drawn. I can just take and stretch this out if I want to. Or I can draw me another line. I think I'll draw me another line here because I want to keep it separate. If you notice, I'm only going to come out about, I'm going to just pick a number. I'm going to say 4 feet for the time being. Okay, now the thickness of our floor, and we're going to go down now. So this is the top of the floor line that I've just put in. We're going to pour 4 inches of concrete, okay, and we're going to have 4 inches of gravel underneath there too. So what we've done is that gets us back just about, well, it does get us back to the top of our footing. Okay, so we got 4 inches of stone and we've got 4 inches of concrete on here. This will be our floor. We'll label it in a minute. Now, as we're going up through here, we need to go ahead, since we've got our floor line established, and we've got our floor line established up here. So what I want to do, if we measure from here, and I'm just going to do just a simple measure to show you. So you see there we're at 9 feet. And you think, wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be 8 feet. Well, it is, but that's 8 feet clear. So what we've got, if I offset 96 inches for 8 feet, that puts us to the bottom of the ceiling joist. Now, if you remember, if we go back over here and look at our floor plan notes, we said we're going to use a wooden I-beam dimension system. Well, the first thing you've got to do is we need to think about that, because that is going to determine how tall everything's going to be. Because we have to have different sizes for different things for our spans. If we're going to clear span something, it's going to have to be a lot thicker. Clear span means there's no poles or posts in the middle of our basement, is what that means. So we've got to know how far we can span to be able to do that. You know, that's like we've got this garage area over here. We don't want a pole in this garage area. But what we may have to do is we may have to come in, and you know, we've got to be able to span that 16 feet right here to be able to get it to work out. So you need to go in, and I've created these. I'm going to go down and show them to you now. I'm going to click here. I've created these charts for you. Actually, I got them off the internet. When I say created, I just made PDFs is what I did. You know, for normal lumber, standard lumber, what we can do is we need to look at our chart. We've got 30-pound live load, 10-pound dead load. If we scroll down, we can also do 40-10. So let's look at 40-10 for the time being. And look what we've got. You remember that number was 16.8. Okay, so it's 16.8. We can span 16.8, 16 inches on center. We can cover it all the way up to a number 2 dense. See here, we've got 17.1. Or we see we can't get it with a non-dense, and we can't get it with just a number 2. So we're going to have to use a number 2 dense to do that, because those floor joists are going to have to be turned sideways for us to make this work out and not have that a pole in the middle. So that's as far as we can go. Nowhere can we span the full 28 feet in standard lumber. If we went to a floor truss system and we used 2x4 lumber, and we scroll down again, and again we've got the 40-pound live load. So see, if we do these, we can change our spacing and stuff. You know, the overall width of the house, if we did 16 inches on center, we could cover 16 inches on center with an 18-inch truss. Well, we designed the house as far as our initial layout with 12 inches between the floor. So see, we're 6 inches thicker than that. What's the problem with that? Well, the big problem with that is we didn't allow enough room to get another step in for our house. So we've got to do that. We would have to add a step as far as our house goes. And that would be something we could work out. Now, we may have to put a winder at the bottom or something like that to be able to do that, but we could make it work, okay? If we went with an I-beam, and then again, we've got different spacing stuff. If we went with an I-beam, remember, what we're looking for is that 28 feet. That's our magic number. And to get to 28 feet, if we start looking down through here, and this is just a simple span, so clear span. If we scroll down through here and find it, where do we see 28 feet at, greater than 28 feet? Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. Oh, right there, GP 90. Here we can span up to 30 feet. But again, it's a 16 inch. See, the 11 will not reach it. Will any of these 11s reach it? No, nowhere do they reach it. So that's the reason why we've got to look at that. The closest we could get as far as an 11 goes is if we went 12 inches on center, and then what we would have in that case would just be almost 25 feet. So we can't reach it. That's with the I-beams. Now, if we put something to support in there, we could get away with it. So that's the other part of it too. So we could, with I-beams, it's just, it ends up creating an issue. Now, what we could do is we could put a set of columns down the middle of it to support that and carry that load. That would work. And if we did that on 16-inch centers, if we went half the distance, that'd be 14 feet. Well, all of these will do it at 14 feet. So we're good to go. But again, this is an 11 7/8 thick. Well, we've also got to include our subfloor and stuff in there. So when you start adding all that up, we're probably going to be better off to go back to just a regular dimensional lumber, which is, 2x lumber, to create this. So, because we're going to have the piers down, going to have a post down the middle of it, we can turn and go the other direction in that other part, and we can carry what we need to carry. Now, when we do that, what that means is this wall will have to be load bearing, so that means we'll also end up having to put a footing underneath this wall, because we're going to be bearing from here to here, and then our others will be running this direction. So that's something, when you get into it, you've got to think about that. So what we would have to do is we would have to go in. I'm going to just use the copy command to make it easy. I'm going to copy that. Okay, I'm going to use the end point of the wall there. I'm going to come over to the end point of this wall, and I'm going to get on the edge of the stud. Okay, so there it is. And now I'm going to put one on the other side as well. So it needs to be over here. I could just draw a line and mirror it, or I could do it, copy it, either one. I'm going to zoom in, and I am just going to come in here, hover and drag down just to get it clear, drag across here. So now I've got something to mirror around. So now I'm going to mirror this around that, like that. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, because if I don't get rid of it now, I'll forget. So see, this is going to end up, if we want clear in this area in the garage, we're going to have to pour some more footing is what we've got to do. I'm going to hit trim and select all, and I'm going to come in. Actually, I'm not going to hit select all. I'm going to hit trim, and I'm going to pick my cutting edges, make it easier. And I'm going to get rid of that. So we've got the footing running down through there. I'm going to zoom in down here on this side and get rid of that. So there's our footing between that. And then this note, remember, these notes are put in as a block. So I'm going to have to explode that. Okay. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to say flooring system is going to be, and this is where I need to go back and look at that chart. So I want to make sure I get the right one, which is dimensional lumber for my southern yellow pine. So what am I going to have to make my spans here? And a 2x12 is what we're going to end up using. We're covered fine on 2x12s. We can go all the way out now, because we're going to put a set of posts in our basement, and we can span the other side no problem with a number 2 dents. We can even span it with just a number 2, which is great. That's all we need. And a number 2, if we go down here, See, this is 16.6. We're going to have, because it's 16.8, we're going to have the number 2 dents to be able to span that one direction. And then the other way we're covered because it's 28 feet and we're on 16-inch centers. So half of 28 is 14. We're good here because that'll cover our 14 feet. Okay? No, it's a little bit confusing, but see, this is what happens when we start working on stuff. We start seeing, oh no, I've got to back up now and readjust stuff. Like this door, it may end up having to move. It may not. It's just according to what we've got and where we've got it. So now, while we're here, let's go ahead and clean some stuff up. So we need to say that what we're going to have is 16 inches, O, period, period, C, period. Okay, 16 inches on center. We need to put what it is. We're going to use 2 by 12, 16 inches on center. Okay, so we've told people that we're going to do that. So there's that taken care of. Now, what else do we have to do? Well, here's where we've really got to think through our process again. I need to go in here to wall. I need to find the center point, which we know it's right on the end of that brick, which is not a problem. I'm going to draw it all the way across here. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop it here at the edge of this wall, because what I need to do now is I need to measure from the end of this to the end of this. Make sure I get the right end point. It's 32, let's say 34 feet long. 34 feet long. Again, we're using 2 by 12. So if we go back to our chart again, we're going to use that number 2, 32 feet long. Well, we said 34. This will cover us fine. The number 2 dents will. So if we do that, then we'll be fine on that. We can span that far. So we're just going to have to put one column in the middle of our basement, which is good. So that means we can come in. I'm going to draw a circle dead center. Okay, and I always make this big enough so I can see it. So I put a 4-inch column in there. I know it's kind of small when you zoom in, but that's what we're going to need. And then we need to have a footing underneath this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 12-inch square footing. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to drag out 6 inches. Now I'm going to go up 6 inches. Now I can do my 12. Back down 12. Back across, hover here and drag down. I'm going to hit escape, and then I'm going to drag this line down and make it a full 12. Okay, so there's my footing. Now because that's a footing, I'm going to highlight the whole thing. And see, remember, we've got this on wall, which is good, but what we want to do is we want to change its line type. And we're going to go to a hidden line. We're going to go to the hidden 2 line. Okay, so there's our pier footing. We've got it in place. And while we're here now, the other thing that we've got to do is we've got to show that we're going to have a girder across here. So that's something else that we're going to end up noting. So let's figure this out. So we've got one dead center. We are drawing this nominal, so I'm going to do an offset of 1 inch. And I'm going to offset 2 inches, because a girder is always a triple. Okay, so there it is. Now I can get rid of that center line, delete that. There's my girder running across the top. There's my column that I'm going to have it's just a metal post column sitting on top of that footing. And I will have to note all this stuff, so I'm going to copy a note over. Remember, this is the best way to do this. We can cheat real easy. I can come in here and click this and drop it here. I can come in here and I can drop it here and get it right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so it touches that circle. There we go. And I need one more, but I need it underneath. So I'm going to drop it in. And now look what's got to happen. This is that ripple effect that we always talk about. I'm going to end up having to move my notes down so I've got plenty of room to get in here, because what I need to do is I need to flip this leader. So I'm just going to say mirror the leader. Click, I'm going to drag out. I'm going to say yes, get rid of the source object. Now I've got that thing flipped in the direction that I want it. And now I'm going to move it down and I'm going to point it to footing. Okay, so we've got that. So now what I can do is I can change my note. And here what I've got is I'm going to delete every bit of this. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to put it in a bracket so it shows quantity. 3, 2, by 12. I'm going to back up. I'm not going to put my space in here like I've got. I like it better like this. 3, 2 by 12, and then I'm going to go to the end of that line. And I'm going to put girder or beam. And notice I didn't have my cap lock on. And like I said, we can either use beam or girder, whichever term you'd rather use, because they are synonymous. Okay? So there's that note. Now, what's this note got to be? This note is going to say steel pipe column. Okay? So there's that one. And then this note's going to say, let's get rid of all of it. This is a 12 by 12 by 8 column or pier, and we'll use the word pier, footing. Okay? So there, now we've got those labeled. Well, now what's the other thing we've got to do? Because we've created all this, now we've got another issue. We need to tell somebody which direction our floors run. So again, I'm going to come in and I'm going to use this leader again to my advantage, or I could just make me another one. I think I'll just make another one. And notice this time I'm going to draw that leader vertical. Remember, we never draw leaders vertical, do we? But I'm going to use this on purpose. I'm going to draw it out that long. Okay? Now I'm going to explode that thing because I want to get rid of the shoulder. I want that to go away. Okay? And now what we've got is we've got an arrowhead out here on the end. I'm going to mirror that arrowhead, and I'm going to mirror it around the midpoint of this line, so I've got an arrowhead on both ends. So now you see that looks really good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get me some text. I'm just going to copy some of the text that I've got here. We'll move it up. We'll edit this. And now this text is going to say 2 by 12 joists. Okay? And then when I get that done, I'm going to just click off of it because that's all I want on that. Now I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. We'll move it over here close to that arrow leader that I made. And notice what I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in now and I'm going to keep it up off of that a little bit. Now I can take and stretch this leader out to the length where it makes sense. Because I want it inside of that. And I want it about the same length on each side, so right about there. Okay. Now I'm going to copy that text down. And then on this side, I'm going to say 16 inches. And again, O period, C period. 16 inches on center. Okay? And I'm going to just move this to where it's sort of centered up also. And grab the grip and drag it over here a little bit. Get it about centered underneath that. Okay? So see what I'm doing is I'm showing the direction that my floor joists are running in. This is important to do. Now I'm going to move all of this. We'll get right over in here in a fairly clear area. Okay. Now look what I did. I missed my arrowhead. See it? What you might want to do is you might want to group all that together. So what we can do is we can say GROUP, group, and hit enter. Make sure you get everything, including both arrowheads. Now that's going to act as a group. Now I can grab it with one grip and move it wherever I want. Okay? So what do we got to do about that? So we've got it there. You know, we really need it on this side too. So again, I'm going to move my notes one more time. And it may end up being that we have to move these notes completely outside of our floor. I don't like to. I'd rather keep it inside if I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them up a little tight. I want to be sure to stay off that leader up there that's got my pier footing note on it. Okay, so there's that. The reason why I did that is I want to copy that group. I'd love to have it down here as well. And notice something. Notice I'm going to put it over here, but this is the tricky part. This is where I have to rotate this back down to horizontal because they're going to run this direction. And then I've also got to do one more thing. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say copy. I'm going to grab that by the endpoint. I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that this is, and I'm going to do a near because I've got it's wanting to go to the midpoint. So I'm going to type in NEAR so I can put it wherever I want to on this line. And I'm going to drop it right there. I want everybody to know that that is a continuous footing as well. Okay? So that's got us covered all the way around. And by doing this, this will get everything laid out to where we want it. We could put a note in here as far as saying that this is equally spaced between firewall and the wall here. But the problem is this firewall is not going to be here. What we need to do, which would be a little bit better, is we need to be centered up between the footing. So I'm going to do a measure. I'm going to measure from there. From the edge, notice I've got the edge of the footing, and I'm going to measure to here. I want it horizontal. So what I'm going to do when I click, I'm going to see what my delta X is. My delta X is 30 feet 7 1/4. Okay, 30 feet 7 1/4. So that's 15 feet. So if I get centered on that, if I did half of that, I can just come all the way over into here, hover like right in here and drag down, click and drag across and get me an X, and now I can draw me a line straight down. And if everything goes well, I have got it dead centered. Yes, so that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that that is dead center. So by doing that now, I can delete. I'm probably going to need to come in and do a dimension. So I'm going to change to dimension. And notice we're supposed to be working on wall sections, and we're doing all this. You know, this is a whole lot of work, right? So I'm going to drag up now and start my dimension. I'm going to drag over to the center of this, and I'm going to drag up and drop it here. So that says 15, 9, 7/8. That's sort of a wild number, isn't it? Right there. And that is off of our wall. Well, do we want it off the wall or do we want it off the edge of the footing? Because if we come to the edge of our footing instead, now it's 15, 3 7/8. So, you know, to make this really, really, really simple and to get it in the middle, what we may want to do is just something as simple as this. Let's go into stretch. If I can get everything without getting a hold of my notes. Oh no, it's going to be tight. Is it going to work? Yes, just barely. And I'm going to slide this over. Because I'm at 7/8, I'm going to slide it over 1/8 of an inch. And now it's at 15.4. Just making the math easier on the contractors is what I'm doing. And I'm still within my range. No problem. Still within my range. Okay? So that takes care of that for us. So we've done all that work, and now we've got to go back and work on our floor plan. By the way, if this leader is a little long, you can't actually stretch leaders. This is something you may not know. I can grab the leader here, and I can go up to its midpoint if I want to, or just somewhere along the line, and I can make that leader a little bit shorter if I want to. Okay? And that way that gives me a little more room around my notes and stuff. Okay, so all of our foundation plans done. You're going to need to make these changes. Okay? So we got all that done. By the way, we're not done. We've got something else we've got to do. And this is one of those deals that you look back and you say, wait a minute, I thought that I was going to work on a wall section today. Well, we are. But what we're going to do first is we haven't got our porch laid out on this. We also don't have our patio laid out on this or whatever we're going to do back here. So we need to come back in and we need to copy our porch. Okay, notice I'm getting all the lines, including the front lines. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab it from the corner of the brick because that lines up with the corner of the block. I'm going to drag it over and click it onto the corner of the block. Okay, don't get your foundation. Why are we having to do that? Because we've got to put a foundation underneath our porch. Okay, remember, we're putting solid brick underneath our porch all the way around. We're going to make it finished as well. So guess what? We've got to do that, and we've got to make sure that we lay it out with a footing underneath that as well. So when we do this, you know, I'm going to just keep it simple on this today, I'm going to go ahead and make it 12 inches wide. So we've got an 8-inch block behind it. So I'm going to drag this in a foot, this in a foot, and this in a foot. Okay? And then what we've got to do is we've got to put a footing underneath our actual piers. And I'm going to make it 4 inches wider on each side. So I'm going to say offset, and I'm going to do 4. And since I've got a square, if I go to offset and say 4 inches, this is a rectangle. There we go. That time it got it. Okay. So that's got that set. Now we could do 6 inches, and the reason why I'm saying that is because that will keep us in line with what our footing is going to be. So let's offset 6 inches both ways. Click here, click here, click to the outside here, click to the outside here, and then the same thing here, and the same thing here. Okay? So now I'm going to use my fillet command. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Okay? Now, because we've got in here, these are bigger, I'm going to offset this 6 inches as well. And it's going to come out there, and it's going to line up with everything else. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw me a line. I need to make sure I'm in the wall command. Remember, I was working in dimensions earlier. I'm going to go into line. I'm going to click here to here to here. Okay? So that's going to get that in the right place. Now, what did I just do? Well, let me show you what I just did. Let me drag this back to here. Okay? So that's going to get that in the right place. Now, let me drag this one back to here. I'm going to turn these into hidden lines so we can see them. Okay, so there and there. I'm going to go ahead and make them hidden. Remember, use hidden 2. I'm going to go ahead and make this one a hidden 2. Okay? And by doing that, what I've done, I can go ahead and make this one a hidden 2 also. This will make it easier to see. Okay, so there. Now I'm going to get rid of this square. So the reason why I put that square there is so I could do that footing like that. That kind of cleaned that up, didn't it? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back this up to here, and I'm going to back this up to here, and there. Now I've still got my pier, but I've got my brick and block wall going along there as well. Okay, so I can do the same thing here. I can back this up, and I can back this up. Okay. Now, I'll tell you what let's do. Let's do some mirroring. Let's get rid of these 2 lines. And this will make this a little bit easier to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror, and I'm going to mirror all of this corner except this line down here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and get this line too. And now, of course, I'm going to grab the middle of my porch and drag it around, and that will drop it into place. Okay? So that gets us where we want to be. Now I can grab this line, this hidden line, and drag it back to the corner and make it look like it does on the other side. And there we go. Now, see how these lines cross? They need to, because this footing is at a higher elevation than this footing. So that's going to have to be there like that. Now you notice how this runs across the back side of these 2 piers? We're going to have to create a bump out here too. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to say copy. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to grab it from this corner and drag it over to that corner. Now then, I'm going to mirror this line, just the vertical line, from the midpoint of that footing to there. Now let's fillet that. Okay? Now, these need to be hidden lines as well. Even though it says by layer, we want to go ahead and make them hidden. It may not break them, but we want them to go ahead and be hidden lines just to match everything else. Okay? So there's that. And now what we can do is we can copy the very same thing to our middle one. And you just find you a point to copy by, and I'm using the midpoint of a line. And now I'm going to go into trim, and I'm going to get all the back edge of these, and I'm going to trim out the hidden line here and trim out the hidden line here. Okay? And now you see we've got a pretty good layout here. The only thing that I need to trim is I need to get these lines out of the middle of the piers here. Okay? So we've got that done. Now we need to put our brick and block in there. So we need to go ahead and notice, remember what we did for our brick and block here? We're going to have the very same setup down here. So let's see what happens if I try to copy that, see if it'll let me. So if I click on that, and see the whole thing is part of it, so I'm going to have to do that brick separate. Okay, remember our gap here? Well, let's measure it and make sure we know how far it is. Here to here is 3/8 of an inch, because what we did was we drew that block true size, okay? Now I did sort of a nominal here, so we're going to sort of get away with it here. And what we're going to do, let's go ahead and let's offset 8 inches from the back side. Oops, went the wrong way with it, didn't I? There we go. So now let's get rid of that line that I accidentally put in there. And now then, let's go back and let's look at our brick and block right here. We did leave a gap there of 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go back to my porch. I'm going to do an offset of 0.375 or 3/8, whichever one you'd rather do. There we go. Okay, so there's that. And now we can come in and we can do our brick like we did before. So let's go into hatch pattern. Remember our scale factor is 1 on here. Well, we sort of need to know what we did here for our hatch pattern. So I'm going to double click on that hatch pattern and find out what our properties are. Let's see what scale we're at. Line type 1, yep. There we go. Scale factor 24. Okay, so we're going to go into hatch. We're in an ANSI 31, which is the diagonal hatch. I'm going to change my scale pattern to 24. Okay, and now I'm going to be able to zoom in, click in here. I'm going to click in here as well, get in behind that wall, click in here, 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 and here, and then back in there. Okay. So that's got that laid out. Now these columns, these piers that we've got, they're also brick. So but we're going to lay these as brick columns, okay? And we can put a concrete block inside of it or whatever, but we're not going to tell them how to do that. Our big thing here is that we want to show them this and let them see what we've got here. So now by doing that, I'm going to do another copy. I'm going to copy this note again. This note has been really convenient, hasn't it? Okay, like that. And that way we know what we've got there. And then we can copy one more time. Let's go to here and let's talk about these piers. We'll change our note up here. And remember now what you have to do here is we have to know how big. So we're going to get out, we're going to click on measure. How big do we make these? They're 1'6", so they're 18-inch square. So I can put a 1 in front of that 8. 18-inch brick, and then piers. And then I need to tell the height. So I'm going to hit enter, get me another line of text. And when I put in my height, what I want to put is I want them to be 36 inches AFF, above finished floor. We need to put periods in there. Above finished floor. So now we've told them how tall we want these. And that's going to make it a lot easier for them when they go to build them. Okay? We do need a note in here telling them what we've got here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have just an open area in here. So the flooring system for the porch will end up being, we can either do a decking or we can do concrete or whatever we want. It'd be easier, honestly, just to come in here and do decking. So I'm going to copy one note here. I'm going to copy that. and that and say copy. Drag it down here. And I'm going to change this to read porch notes, P-O-R-C-H, porch notes. And the floor system here is going to be, we're spanning 10 feet, so we'll probably end up doing 2x10s. Actually, 2x8s will work no further than we're spanning. 2x8, 16 inches on center. These need to be pressure treated, PT. Okay, and I do need another note down there, so I'm going to copy number 2. I'm going to cheat and make it easy. I'm going to get on the bottom of that right there. Now I've got to drag it down and sort of get it lined up with the other one. So I'm right on the edge of the B, right about there. So that's pretty good. And what I'm going to put here is I'm going to put our decking is going to end up being 8-inch pressure treated deck boards. There we go. Okay. That'll make that pretty simple. I can move that note up if I want to just to make it pretty. You don't have to, but it's going to look better if I slide up. This is where you zoom in. Don't get your brackets too close to each other. Okay, so there's our porch notes. Put in, and we need to do a dimension. So here again, go into your dimension layer, do a dimension, click out, and we're going to do face of brick to face of brick. Drag out and say 10 feet. And again, very same thing here, face of brick or column to face of column. Click there, and there's that. So now we've got the porch laid out. Well, how about the patio? Oh boy, this thing just keeps on growing and growing and growing, doesn't it? Well, if you remember, we came back here. I'm going to hover right here. I'm actually going to come right here and hover right here, and I'm going to drag way up here. And I'm going to start here, and I'm going to drag over. I'm just hovering, dragging up. And it don't want to grab, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to draw me a line. Draw me a line up. I'm going to draw me a line across. And what we're after is where the patio hit at, down here. And where the porch hit at, down here. Because we want to make sure that we've got it in the right place. So what we did was we worked off of this up here. And drew that in. So if we go this way, and notice what I'm doing is I'm just checking lengths now because I want it to be in the right place. So if we go all the way over to the edge of our door, see, we're right at 20 feet. Well, we didn't come that far. So we want to make sure that this is in the right place and get it in the right location. And honestly, y'all, I can't remember that number right now. So we'll do that in another video, okay? So that's enough of that anyway. So let's stop there. And we didn't even get to finish our wall section, but this is long enough for today. If you'll get this much of it done, get your notes cleaned up, and then what we're going to do is we are going to come in here and we're going to start on the wall section. I'll do another video later on, and when we do that, you'll be able to finish up what we've got to do. Until then, y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.